Welcome to another episode of Israel Undiplomatic. I'm Mark Regev, and I'm here with my co-host, Ruthie Blum.
Hi, Mark. It's great to see you, especially in this week when we have so much to unpack. The world has changed in the past week.
Well, some of those changes we talked out before the show. We spoke about the fact that Trump has started to make appointments to his incoming administration. And many of the names are people who are known to be strong supporters of Israel.
Many? Every single one is so pro-Israel that I would say a lot of Israelis could learn from them. And it's not only that they're pro-Israel. Of course, you know that my position has always been that being pro-Israel is being pro-America. I've always said that. I know that Americans didn't vote on the basis of Israel. That's not what you do when you live in a country. You base it on your interests, like the economy and everything else. But Israel is an American interest, and I think that got lost in translation during the Biden administration.
But to be fair, Ruthie, we talk about the MAGA phenomena, right? Make America Great Again. So you have people in that tent who are extremely, extremely pro-Israel. And some of those names have come out now and have received appointments. But there's no doubt that MAGA also includes a sort of America First isolationism that wants to see Fortress America and let's fix our borders and let's be strong, but pull back from engagement in the world. And that tendency, some people see that as worrying for Israel.
You know, in 2015 and 2016, in the 2016 election, when Trump became president the first time in 2017, January 2017, that's exactly what we said then. We said, okay, listen, at the time, I said, I don't really care. I'll vote for a box of cornflakes over any Democrat. So for me, it wasn't a dilemma. But even I said, well, there's a problem. Trump is an isolationist. Trump is this, Trump is that. And who knew? And we don't know. He's unpredictable. He was anything but an isolationist in the sense that Israelis mean. What he is and what he seems to be saying now, it's not America First, meaning the rest of the world can go to hell. It just means, no, it's not America's job to solve all the world's problems, to democratize the whole world, etc. It's its job to ensure that there are fewest possible wars, and the ones that exist have to come to their logical conclusion. And that, by the way, I know a lot of what they call neocons. It's a misnomer, but never mind, that the neocons are very pro-Ukraine winning the war against Russia. And they are concerned because Trump has made it clear that he wants to end that war right away, and he's going to do it. What did he say? In a week, in a month, whatever he said. But where Israel is concerned, the war in Gaza, he said, come on, finish it up, guys, finish it up. What he did not say was ceasefire. What he did not say is we'll withhold weapons. What we do know now, or I believe, is that this war might have been over a long time ago if the Biden administration hadn't tied Israel's hands.
I was listening to some of the commentary about the Trump election, and apparently in Europe, people are particularly worried. And the truth is, if I understand Trump, and maybe I do and maybe I don't know if anyone really, but my take is this, that he doesn't like freeloaders. And that's one of his criticisms of the Europeans who, according to him, don't do their fair share in NATO and in defending. And he's even said things we won't protect people who won't do their own fair share. So here Israel is in many ways a model ally. Yes, it's our young men and women doing their compulsory national service. It's Israeli soldiers who are fighting and dying in Lebanon and in Gaza. We're not asking America to fight for us. We're asking America to support us in defending ourselves. And I would think, yes, that fits into this sort of Trump framework. But he had those funny talks with the North Korean dictator. People say that he wants to, get this deal with Putin, and Putin seemed to be quite happy about his election. Is it not possible, if he can be nice to North Korea, can he not be nice to Iran too?
Look, you have to look at the reality on the ground. Yes, he went to North Korea. Trump also says...
He didn't go to North Korea.
No. He was buddying up to Kim Jong-un, right?
Yeah.
He talked about how, yes, now, you have to make a distinction between Trump's talk and Trump's actions. He did do that. He did say that. He did say he's going to end this war with Ukraine and he'll speak to Putin. But under his watch, North Korea did not behave in the same belligerent manner that it has been doing recently.
That's because he scares people who understand power.
The world understood that the Biden administration, like the Obama administration, of which it was a clone and had many of the same people, did not believe in American power, let alone Israeli power. That's why I did want to get to the point that it's not that necessarily they're anti-Israel. They're also anti-American power. They don't believe in winning wars. They believe in sort of forever wars. They don't believe that America is greater than other countries.
I remember that very specifically during the heyday, wrong word, but when the Syrian civil war was most intensive. And there was the famous Obama red line about the use of chemical weapons. And it wasn't followed through on. There was a diplomatic or something in the end, which Israel publicly expressed support for the deal. It was that all the chemical weapons would leave. But the red line was not, the idea that if you use these weapons, you will face consequences. In the end, there was this diplomatic deal. I remember when Trump came in and there was a use of chemical weapons, the administration in Washington, the new administration then, the Trump administration, responded militarily. And I think everyone in Israel and in the region, Israel's Arab friends, America's Arab friends, were also saying, this is good. Let's be frank. When you're dealing with people like the Assad regime in Syria or the terrorists in Gaza or in Lebanon or the Iranian dictatorship, right? You think language bothers them a lot? Power bothers them. And I think we spoke about this a bit last week, the fear that the other side could use power, use its force. There's no point in having all this military equipment if the other side thinks you're never going to use it. Their fear that you actually would use it is actually probably a very, I would say, crucial in maintaining peace and stability.
Absolutely. And that, for this reason, I would like to make two comparisons here. One is a comparison between the current U.S. ambassador to the UN, and all of this in relation to Israel, by the way. And the other is Trump's pick for the current ambassador to the UN and Trump's pick for ambassador to the UN, and a comparison between Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense with our current one. All right? Now, where the UN is concerned, we have a current ambassador, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who says Israel better not commit genocide. Israel is creating a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Israel, you better watch out. You better watch out. In this hotbed, in this hornet's nest of anti-Semites, our greatest ally says that, okay? Now, the incoming UN ambassador from America is so pro-Israel and so out to get the anti-Semites. She is going to be like Nikki Haley was on steroids. That's Elise Stefanik. Now let's take the Secretary of Defense. Lloyd Austin, our current Secretary of Defense, is someone with an illustrious military history, unlike the incoming one who has a military history, but he's not a general and all that. All right? Now, Lloyd Austin, when the war in Gaza broke out, or first when the Hamas massacre occurred, Lloyd Austin said outright, listen, I fought ISIS for 6 years, and I'm telling you that I've never seen the kind of atrocities that Hamas committed against Israel. He said that. And then what has happened since then? He's been saying, no, you can't kill too many civilians. He's been very careful at humanitarian aid. And he was also, he met frequently or, on the telephone and also in person with the now no longer defense minister, Yoav Gallant. And the two of them were kind of on that same page. Now look at Pete Hegseth, who's coming in to be the defense secretary. And he says just the opposite. He says, first of all, we've got to clean out the swamp of the Pentagon from all its woke ideology. We need to be strong. America has to be a strong power. Israel has to get the job done. Israel has been really careful with civilians, and Israel needs to kill every last Hamas. Every last Hamas.
I just want to stress this because otherwise I get comments. And when you say you complain about the current U.S. ambassador to the United Nations saying Israel's killing too many civilians, right? So let's be clear, we don't want to kill civilians. It's not something that we want to do. If inevitably, people caught up in the crossfire, especially with Hamas's strategy of using human shields. But if an American says to us, you have to do the maximum to keep civilian casualties down, I say, I agree. Let's see how we do this the best we can. And in fact, I think if you look at Israel fighting wars in urban areas and America fighting wars in urban areas, actually the level of civilian casualties under Israel is probably less than the United States. But when you say you don't like it because she tells us we've got to keep civilian casualties, I think we should embrace it and say, actually, we're doing everything we can to keep those civilian casualties down.
But excuse me, Mark.
Yes.
We've always done that. The statement just recently, just now, such a statement would suggest that we're not. You don't warn your ally about something that the whole world is accusing it of, and the International Criminal Court, when it's a lie, that we are not protecting civilians. And to say that, listen, you know what it reminds me of? I mean, I hate to make this comparison because it'll sound silly, but it really does remind me of that. As a girl, I'd be eating dinner at the family, dinner table, and then we'd finish eating, and I would get up and start clearing the table. I'd be stacking the dishes and going to the kitchen, and my father would say, help your mother with the dishes. Was that, what do you think I'm doing? Look at me, I'm doing it. No, but that's a way of saying, so what are you saying? It's to suggest that I wasn't going to initiate and help my mother with the dishes.
So I accept that point. I accept the point. And I think I remember in the past I've sat in meetings, yes, and a lot of Israelis do think that when American officials sort of preach to us about the importance of keeping civilians safe, yes, you agree with the theory, but then you actually see that in practice Israel probably does a better job than America has in similar circumstances, yes, and the American media, to a large extent, things that Israel does and I'm very critical of, they let the Americans, when it's American soldiers involved. There's a whole issue here, it's a very difficult issue. To what extent, in trying to lower the level of civilian casualties, do we risk the lives of our own soldiers? And it's a difficult one, right? It's a difficult soldier. If you're a parent, as you are, Ruthie, of an Israeli soldier in a combat zone, whether today in South Lebanon or in Gaza, to what extent, because you are taking special steps to try to avoid civilian casualties, are you risking the lives of your own servicemen and women?
Definitely, and we see it. Okay, we see that happening all the time. And it's not just that. It's not just, we could get into a discussion about whether it's worth the risk to avoid civilian casualties, et cetera. But let's not get into that for a moment. What I'm trying to point out is the only thing an American ambassador to the UN should be shouting into the microphone is that Israel is moral, upstanding, a great ally, and has protected civilians and has been attacked in a vicious way, and not ceasefire.
And why is that important? I understand you, because you're saying the UN is this institutionalized anti-Israel body with these crazy diatribes against Israel. And so if the United States is having a serious conversation with Israel about it, that's fine, but that's not the framework. At the UN, when everyone stands up and starts beating up on Israel, you think the job of the United States, and I tend to agree with this, is to stand up and say, we stand by our ally. That's what you're saying. And you think this is going to change now?
Absolutely, it's going to change. Now, of course, I don't have a crystal ball, and things can develop and I'll be the first one to criticize the Trump administration if it adopts policies with which I disagree. I'm not shy about that. But there's no question it'll be better for Israel than what we have now. And I'll tell you another thing. The person appointed to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel is Mike Huckabee, Governor Mike Huckabee. He loves Israel, and Israelis know him. He's come to Israel many, many times. Now, last night on Israel's Channel 14, and one of the shows, a very popular show called The Patriotim, the Patriots.
Can I just say to our listeners, they should know that this program has got almost a massive cult following amongst right-wingers in Israel. It's probably the most, it's like that's the place where it's like Fox News for Israelis. Go ahead.
And by the way, cult following, it's the only channel on television that you can actually watch without being fed left-wing propaganda. But okay, never mind for a second. One of the panelists, who's a broadcast journalist, he has a radio show. He also writes for the press. He opened the broadcast when they were talking about Trump's appointments as of yesterday. And his name is Yotam Zimri. And he said, relating to this business of a deadline that the U.S. imposed on Israel, if we don't start getting more humanitarian aid into Gaza, they're going to impose an arms embargo. So Yotam Zimri said, wow, what's going to start happening in the next administration is the U.S. is going to impose sanctions on anybody who doesn't move to Judea and Samaria.
But the truth is, when Israel faces these sort of, anti-Israel organizations, whether, in the General Assembly or another, like you said, the ICC, the ICJ, the different, systems, the Human Rights Council. So to be serious, the United States can place sanctions, and that's very effective sometimes. Let's say if the ICC prosecutor decides to indict against Israel as he has, the United States can theoretically say, well, you're not welcome in the United States anymore. And if the judges decide to move ahead, in other words, America has power here. It's not only its moral voice, but its ability to follow through and say, you are acting in a way which is anti-Semitic, you're acting in a way which is unacceptable. We in the United States will take sanctions against you. And that can be, I think, very important. I mean, just like if there's some organization, let's say, that does humanitarian or cultural work, and they start doing anti-Israel things, the United States can say, and I think a lot of the people in the MAGA world, let's just cut their budget. Let's sanction them. Let's throw their officers out. Now, let's leave the organization.
Exactly. And speaking of that, Israel just banned UNRWA offices from Jerusalem, and the United States is angry about that. This is my point. This would not happen under the Trump administration. Would not, will not. And one other thing, the business of MAGA, one of the reasons that Make America Great Again is a slogan that works. It's not just isolationism and all that. Understand that Democrats they are like for the Europeanization of America. You talk about Europe is looking finished right now. I'm not saying it's finished, but America, the whole point about it was that it is for pride, patriotism, power. Those are 3 Ps. I just said alliteration. It is building a flourishing economy. It's where, as Kamala Harris liked to say, aspirations, but serious ones. And this administration has done everything it can to undo that kind of fabric in American society. And that's this whole woke thing. And we're seeing with each new appointment, these are people who say, Israel is our closest ally. Woke culture is destroying America, etc.
But don't you think a lot of the Israeli right, who are sort of, like the people last night on that television show, who are embracing Trump and think this is going to be really great for Israel, don't you think some of them might be in a surprise? Let's remember Trump's deal of the century Middle East plan included a Palestinian state. And it's quite possible that he wants to revisit that. Maybe not immediately, but I mean, that's not part of his Middle East agenda too?
Look, at that time, wording is always really important. Because at that time, by the way, I have to say, even our own prime minister years ago said he supported it as long as it's not a terrorist
speech, where he said he placed 2 conditions then on Palestinian state.
Now, what was beautiful about the Abraham Accords is the deal of the century. Okay, what was beautiful about it was that Trump proved that you can make peace in the Middle East without a Palestinian state as a prerequisite. Now,
correct.
Netanyahu has been saying that for years and years and years. And that's the difference. The difference is, I'm sorry, peace does not pass through the Palestinians. So that was one important thing. And the thing is that eventually a Palestinian state, his message to the Palestinian Authority was, you're welcome to, join us in these peace accords. and then you'll be rewarded. We'll help you financially.
But,
you'll build
okay, that I understand. I agree.
But
how does the Israeli right who are today clapping about Trump, how are they going to feel if that issue comes
No,
back?
because even the picks so far, each one of them has said, you're talking about a Palestinian state now, a terrorist state. Marco Rubio, who is Trump's pick for, it's not final, but is Trump's pick for Secretary of State. He says, two-state solution? What two-state solution? A terrorist state? There is no such thing. No. And we have Mike Huckabee saying, there's no such thing as Israeli occupation. There's no such, he says, no, I'm sorry, there's no such thing as settlements. They're communities, they're cities, they're neighborhoods. You have to look at who these people are. There is no way. Now, never mind that there's no such thing as a Palestinian state. In the Palestinians' mind, they've proven that again and again and again. Okay, but so forget, even Bill Clinton had to come out during his campaigning for Kamala Harris and say, I'm sorry, Arafat rejected everything. We're going to give him everything. Israel was going to give him everything, and he rejected it. The point is, don't worry about that. I would not worry about that. And you said my right-wing friends will say, oh, what if he talks about a Palestinian state? He might. The question is not whether he talks about it. The question is what demands he would place on it. And the same thing about what demands he places on Israel. And here I have complete faith that this will be a total turnaround from what we've seen in the last nearly 4 years.
What I did notice in the last few days, elements within the right in Israel have gone back to the idea of annexation. In other words, that Israel formally annex parts of the West Bank. I don't think anyone's talking about the entire West Bank, but maybe where the Jewish communities are in the West Bank, maybe areas crucial for security. And this was an idea that Netanyahu was talking about in the last year of the Trump administration in 2020. In the end, the idea was shelved because it was the prerequisite for, shelving the idea was a prerequisite for making the Abraham Accords, and most Israelis agreed it was a good price to pay. This idea is now, of course, being raised again publicly by the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, who represents one of the right-wing parties in the coalition. It's important to remember, though, from a historic point of view, and you know me, I'm always into what happened in the past, this originally was a left-wing idea. This was an idea put on the table by a Labour foreign minister, a former Labour foreign minister, Yigal Allon, who was this kibbutznik leader of the Palmach and all this in the fight for independence. And the idea is we parts of the West Bank that are crucial for Israeli security and or a great significance in Jewish history and so forth should become part of Israel, and the other parts of the West Bank could be put in under Arab sovereignty in a peace agreement. The idea there'll be some partition in the West Bank. And so the idea has left-wing roots, but today there's no one in the left, I think, supports it. And the question is it realistic, you think, for these people to raise the issue? Is it clever for them to raise the issue that there's still a different president in power? Are they not just going to antagonize? And why not wait before raising the issue? And will Trump at all be interested in going down this road, especially if he reads about it in Israeli newspapers before anyone's talked to him about it?
Okay, so there's a lot to answer there. So first of all, is it wise to do it now? In fairness to Smotrich, and by the way, may I just say, I noticed this not only with you, but a lot of people, that you say he's the head of a right-wing party. You rarely say, he's always referred to as right. And somehow all those other parties are never referred to as, oh, he's a real far leftist party. No. They're all the center and he's right wing. So I just want to get that straight for a minute. Bezalel Smotrich, to defend him, in his defense, this is his ideology.
He believes it.
Always has been.
Always has been.
It always has been.
But that doesn't mean it's the right time to raise it now.
No, but he hasn't only raised it now. He's been raising it throughout the war, especially since he thought the timing was right, because we see that the Palestinian Authority, for example.
And I say that I think you are wrong, and I want to say why. He has been talking, I think, I disagree with him. I don't know if you agree with him or not on the issue. He's, since the war started, of reestablishing settlements in Gaza. But only since the Trump victory, he's always believed in annexation. but only since the Trump victory has he talked about it publicly, as far as I know. And he said that he thinks 2025 is going to be the year of annexation. So I think he was responding directly to Trump's victory in the United States.
Okay, so what you could say, and here I'll say something about that. You asked me, do I believe in annexation? Yes, I do. I do believe in it. Is it wise to bring it up right now? Well, it almost feels as though we're getting greedy. We're so excited with these appointments, and it's so pro-Israel. Oh, well, in that case, maybe okay, now let's take this. It may not be wise, and it may not matter that much. I'm not sure it matters, but it's true that it gets the left very angry. And but again, I don't think it'll affect Trump one way or the other. What his view of it, it won't make him against it or for it. But I would.
Can I just explain?
Yes.
It came up in 2020 because in Trump's plan for a Palestinian state, there were maps, and there were parts of the West Bank went to Israel. And it was clear the Palestinians weren't going for the deal, but Netanyahu said at the time, before he pulled back, yes, he said, those areas which the Trump plan gave to Israel, let's now, in a final status still right, let's now take them over now. That was his logic.
Which has been Israel's logic since it was established. All right, basically.
Hang on, I have to argue with you. In 1977, when Menachem Begin became the first Likud prime minister, and many people thought he was going to annex the West Bank, he said publicly, my government will not do it. The second Likud prime minister, Shamir, didn't do it. Sharon didn't do it. Netanyahu, who's been in power for over a decade and a half, has not done it up until now.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant it's been the Israeli mentality, Jewish mentality, since the establishment of the state, to say, okay, well, let's take what they give us, like with the partition plan.
Okay.
And that's what I meant, not about specifically about Judea and Samaria, what some people call the West Bank. But the idea was, okay, so we'll do it. Now, we had the Oslo Accords. We created the Palestinian Authority. They have Area C, there's Area O, we have all these areas. And all it has been is a hotbed of terrorism, which is always because the Palestinians don't want a state. They want to annihilate the state of Israel. And that's the only thing they agree upon as well. Because, Fatah and Hamas, all of those factions, there's no love lost there.
But you're running away from annexation. What's your position?
No, my position is that we have the right to the land. It is our land. It is also, for security purposes, better for us to have control of it. I'd like to have total military control and also, yes, sovereignty, the way the last Trump administration recognized our sovereignty in the Golan Heights. Yes, I believe in it. But I also am prepared to wait to see what other things happen. Because one thing we've seen in the Middle East is that sometimes situations change that enable something else. So we have to see also what happens with Iran. Like, will we destroy the nukes? Will the Iranian people rebel and kick out the Mullah-led regime? We don't know, but those things are all important factors in what happens in Israel. So I would say it's not that I feel that it's urgent. It is urgent for Israel to have total military control of.
But you don't need legal annexation. You don't need legal annexation for that.
That would be the next step, but also of Gaza and also of southern Lebanon. That's my feeling, yes. Because without that, we have zero security.
I have a particularly cynical friend who was telling me this is a sign there's going to be peace with Saudi Arabia. Why? Netanyahu in 2020 and 2021, when he talked about annexation, he did it, we're talking about it because he thought he had a green light from the Trump administration. Then at a certain point, it became clear there wasn't a green light from the Trump administration, but he still kept talking about annexation. And in the end, he traded it for the Abraham Accords. In other words, he used it as a card. And my very cynical friend said maybe that's why he wants to talk about annexation now. Not that he believes it's necessarily going to happen, but it'll be a card that can help kick the Palestinian box to get that peace treaty with Saudi Arabia. In other words, by putting something on the table, you get brownie points for taking it off, more than brownie points. What do you think about that level of realpolitik?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's a cynical view. I think I think there's a lot of logic to it. I actually don't think it's so cynical. But with Saudi Arabia, it's more complicated. Okay, because I haven't been thrilled with the idea of peace with Saudi Arabia all along. All right.
No, you should be. It would be a game changer.
No. We need it. No, I'm saying it's in our interest to be able to use their airspace. It's in our there are many reasons it's in our interest.
Yes, I agree.
But I always said, let's not forget who the Saudis are, and that, women were just recently allowed to learn how to drive and things like that.
Can I tell you, if you want the Arabs to become liberal societies before you make peace, it's not going to happen.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that when the Saudis were on the verge, we know that they gave tacit agreement to the Gulf states to make the Abraham Accords. They allowed us apparently to use their airspace. We even had a plane land in Saudi Arabia once. I think it was a passenger plane that had to land. So yes, they were on the verge. And then October 7th happened, the Hamas massacre. And what the Saudis began to do is say, Iran, now we thought the America-Israel alliance was the strong horse, and we want to, they're enemies of Iran, and we need to align ourselves with them. But they saw this and they said, because the Biden administration, they saw what Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran were doing, said, now they better win, and they better win big, because otherwise, and that's why Saudis started having meetings with the Iranian authorities. So what I'm saying is, we'd better win and win big, and otherwise
Can I tell you, I couldn't. First of all, I think there's a chance for peace with Saudi Arabia, and that is based on the fact that Israel is strong and that we win this war decisively, as we must and we will. I'll finish because we're getting to the end of our time, but I'll just tell you a quick story. I finished an autobiography of a famous Israeli dove, a Labour politician who both of us are old enough to remember, but our children would have no idea who we're talking about. A man called Uzi Baram, who was this big wheeler dealer inside the Labour Party, and he was the leader of in many ways, the more dovish faction there. And he writes that after October 7th, 2023, he spoke to an Arab friend who was a Palestinian nationalist. And he said, do you still believe in the chances of peace? And he thought that his Arab interlocutor would say to him, well, there's no chance of peace because of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, right? That's the standard propaganda line. That's their standard talking points. And he said, this man didn't say that. He said, I'm worried about the two-state solution because on October 7th, Israel showed itself to be weak. And the Arabs will make a deal with Israel if they see Israel is strong, Israel is undefeatable, that Israel is here to stay, that Israel is vibrant, that it's growing, then they'll make, and that's why what you say about the crucial point of winning this war is not only good for keeping Israel safe, but it's crucial for peace. And on that happy point, I'll say, Ruthie, I look forward to speaking to you again next week.
And I say the same to you, Mark.
Bye then.